I don't know how much you're familiar with Joe Rogan, but he does bring up DMT quite a bit. It's almost a meme. It is a
Right.
meme. Have you ever, what is it? Have you ever tried DMT? I mean, I think he talks about this experience of having met other entities, and they were mocking him, I think, if I remember the experience correctly, like laughing at him and saying F you, or something like
Hmm.
that. I may be misremembering this, but there's a general mockery, and the what he learned from that experience is that he shouldn't take himself too seriously. So it's the dissolution of the ego and so on. Like, what do you think about that experience, and maybe if you have more general things about Joe's infatuation with DMT, and if DMT has that important role to play in popular culture in general?
I'm definitely familiar with it. I remember telling you offline that when the first time I learned who Joe Rogan was, it's probably 15 years ago. And I came upon a clip and I realized there's another person in the world who's into both DMT and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I think both those worlds have grown
Yeah.
dramatically since, and it's probably not such a special club these days. So he definitely, got onto my radar screen quickly.
You were into both before it was cool.
Right. I mean, this is all relative because there's people that were, before the late
Yes.
90s and early 2000s who were into it, say, you're a Johnny come lately. But yeah,
Yeah.
compared to where we're at now. But yet, one of the things I always found fascinating by Joe's, telling of his experiences, I think, is that they resemble very much Terrence McKenna's experiences with DMT. And Joe has talked very much about Terrence McKenna and his experiences. If I had to guess, I would guess that probably just having heard Terrence McKenna talk about his experiences, that influenced the coloring
Yeah, it
of
gives you the
Joe's experience.
language to. It's funny. It's funny how that works, because I mean that's why McKenna hasn't. I mean, poets and great orators give us the words to then like start to describe our experiences, because our words are limited, our language is limited, and it's always nice to get some kind of nice poetry into the mix to allow us to put words to it.
Right. And
Yeah.
but I also see some elements that seem to relate to Joe's psychology, again, just from what I've seen of him,
Yeah.
from
Yes.
hours of watching him on his podcast, is that, he's a self-critical guy.
Yes.
And I think with always his positive bent, I'm always struck being a behavioral pharmacologist, and no one else really says it about cannabis. I'll get back to the DMT thing about he likes the kind of the paranoid side of things. He's like, that's you radically examining yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not just a bad thing. That's you need to like look hard at yourself,
Yeah.
and something's making you uncomfortable, like dig into that. And like, it's sort of along the lines of Goggins with exercise. And it's like, yeah, like learning experiences aren't supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
Like, take advantage of these uncomfortable experience. It's why we call in our research, in a safe context, with psychedelics, they're not bad trips, they're challenging experiences.
Nice. Yes.
So
Yeah, it's fascinating. Just as a tiny tangent, it's always cool for me to hear him talk about marijuana, like weed, as the paranoia, the anxiety, or whatever that you experience, as actually the fuel for the experience. Like, I think he talks about smoking weed when he's writing. That's inspiring to me, because then you can't possibly have a bad experience. I'm a huge fan of that. Like, every experience is good. Right,
which is very Goggins.
Yeah, it's very Goggins.
Yeah,
like,
is it bad? Okay, all right, great.
Well, see, Goggins is one side of that. He wants it bad. Like, he wants the experience to be challenging always. But I mean, like, both are good. Like the few times of taking mushrooms, the experience was everything was beautiful. There's zero challenging aspect to it. It was just like, the world is beautiful, and it gave me this deep appreciation of the world, I would say. So like, that's amazing, but also ones that challenge you are also amazing. Like all the times I drink vodka, but but that's another. Let's not. So back to DMT.
Yeah, and Joe's treating cannabis as a psychedelic, which is something that I'd say, like, not a lot of people treat it more like Xanax,
Yes.
or like beer,
Yes.
or vodka. But he's really trying to delve into those the minors, it's been called a minor psychedelic. So with DMT, you know, as you brought up, it's like the entity's mocking him. And it's like, you're not, I mean, this reminds me of him, you know, him describing his, like, you know, writing his, or just his entire method of comedy. It's like, watch the tape of yourself, you know, don't just ignore it. Like, that's where I screwed up. That's where I need to do better. This like sort of radical self-examination, which I think our society is kind of getting away from, because like, you know, all the children win trophies type of thing. You know, it's like, no, don't go overboard, but like recognize when you've messed up.
Yes.
And so like that's a big part of the psychedelic experience. Like, people come out sometimes saying, my God, I need to say sorry to my mom.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's so obvious, like, or so, whatever, you know, interpersonal issue, or like, my God, I'm not pulling enough weight around the house and helping my wife. And, you know, these things that are just obvious to them, the self-criticism that can be a very positive thing if you act on it.